A little bit of commitment, an equal amount of drive and resourcefulness, and so goes the saying, if you put your mind to it, you can achieve almost anything that is doable. This episode talks about my experiences over 2021 as a writer, self-published author, and finally, someone who has evolved that passion into a small publishing house. I've always been inspired by other people's stories about how they did what they did, and I hope this little story is interesting and useful.
Podcast starts now.
Christmas holidays, or any holiday season for that matter, often give us the time needed to reflect and sometimes reconceptualize. The Christmas holidays during 2021 were the first pandemic holidays in our experience. They were quieter than usual, with no outside family or friends. We really did sit back and relax for a nice little period of time. And it was during this little period of time, sitting, reading, and reflecting, that the idea presented itself. I was casually looking over our home library and bookshelves, and the thought hit me. Why is it that there are so many names on these bookshelves, and no spines featuring mine? I had, after all, ghost-written a number of books for people, and coordinated the publication of a couple of others through the old-fashioned traditional publishing approach. I had some experience. So, where the hell were my books? I remember reflecting on that topic on and off throughout the afternoon, and said to myself later that evening, I'm going to do something about this situation the first day back to work in January 2021. And that's how it started. A couple of months later, my first book, Content Creation and Promotion, was published and made available through Amazon. I took a different approach with that book and built a narrative around a collection of transcripts of podcast episodes, which actually proved more time-consuming and cumbersome than if I had developed the structure of the narrative from scratch. But it was a fun, highly rewarding project. The thrill of receiving those first printed copies in an Amazon delivery was just spectacular. But the holiday season illuminated the absence of my name on book spines, and I had actually followed through with a commitment to do something about that. Well, developing that first book actually turned out to be a longer-term project, as the narrative I had in mind needed more discussion, perhaps another 1, 2, or even more books that were related. In short order, a family of books under the title Explained was born. And through the remainder of 2021, Podcasting, the second book, was released in the spring. The special edition that tapped into historical perspectives around Canada's Indian Act that was released in the fall. An explanatory guide on advocacy, government relations, and lobbying should be available in early January, precisely at the time when I committed to producing the first book 1 year earlier. As a writer, I had something to say, sure, but hell, it was vanity that propelled the efforts to produce 4 books in a year's time. My name wasn't on my bookshelves in my library, and now it is. And for me, that's pretty cool. What's even more cool and equally scary is reviewing the Amazon statistics and noticing that people around the world are actually reading my books. Yes, it's very cool, but it really does send you into a frenetic episode of wondering, who are they? What do they think? What if they don't like it? Little did I know, to borrow a phrase from Stranger Than Fiction, that a year later I would have commenced 2021 as a self-published author through Amazon, and later a published author under Henley Point Productions. There really is something to that phrase. As George McFly said near the end of Back to the Future, when you put your mind to something, and you know how the rest goes. This isn't the final podcast of 2021. Until the next one, enjoy this holiday season, and visit stephenchristiansen.ca for more episodes of Before, Behind, and Between. Of course, this podcast is available on all apps and podcast streaming platforms, including Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Stitcher. I'm Stephen Christiansen, and thanks for listening.
A production of of Steven Christensen. Podcast complete.